In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade.
That's what we were told. Most Americans never believed Lee Oswald was the lone gunman, for excellent reasons. In fact, there were at least 6 shooters who fired from 8 to 10 shots or more who are identified here. We have, finally, the solution to the greatest murder mystery in history, laid out for the world to see, proof after proof after proof. Photos were faked, the body was changed, x-rays were altered, the home movies were fixed. 15 experts contribute to a 529-page book with 1,037 photos and diagrams in black and white and color.
Hi, this is Gary King. If you'd like JFK, who, how, and why, and would like to support the new JFK show, then go to patriotradiobooks.com. That's patriotradiobooks.com.
Let's go.
Start.
All right, welcome to the new JFK Show number 172. We've got our man, Don Fox, back after a long hiatus. We've got Larry Rivera. The internet's not working too good in Puerto Rico. We've got Dr. Fetzer with us, and we're still reeling about the trial, the mock trial. There was a mockery unto itself. So we've got Don Fox, who's going to go ahead and lead the charge tonight, and with a couple of slides, and I'm going to play some clips, and we're going to talk about them. And we'll turn it over to you, Don.
Okay, yeah. So the trial was kind of a Travis sham mockery, I guess, of a trial. But I mean, what's not? I mean, who didn't expect that to happen? No, I mean, really. So okay, so I'm going to go ahead and.
Well, as soon as we found out that Larry's slides and overlays and evidence wasn't going to be admitted in the court, then we knew it was a sham, and we made a video.
Yeah. So okay, so we'll I'll start the slideshow here, and we'll dive into some of these topics. Okay, and we're gonna hit. Okay, so it really boils down to the Jewish question. So we're gonna look into that tonight. Henry Adams was a descendant of the presidential family, and he thought that the Jewish question really is the most serious of our problems. Okay, and so that brings us to our erstwhile comrade here, Larry Rivera, and he was removed as a witness from the Oswald mock trial. So you guys had talked about that the last couple of weeks, and I've done some analysis after listening to Mr. Larry Schnapp and Jim Eugenio breaking it down on Black Op Radio, and we'll have some clips on that here shortly. Okay, so what was the kind of the what started all this? Where was this all? What was the seed of this? What was JFK Show number 84? And they thought that the show was anti-Semitic. So during that show, the points I had raised were, let's just do a summary of Jewish involvement in the assassination. So, JFK was lured to Jew-run Dallas to raise money from wealthy Jewish Democratic contributors for the '64 election. 2, Jew Sam Bloom changed the motorcade route to maneuver Kennedy into the kill zone on Elm Street, and Bloom also made sure that the motorcade route was published in the local papers. And point 3, Jew Abraham Zapruder filmed Kennedy's execution. Zapruder's family would later receive a massive payoff from none other than Jew Ken Feinberg, he of 9/11 fame, who determined the fair market value of the film. And 4, shots were fired from the Jew-owned uranium mining company window in the Jew-owned Daltex building. UMC was providing material to Israel's illicit nuclear weapons program. 5, Jew Lyndon Johnson was sworn in as president on Air Force One before JFK's body was cold. And then point 6, Jew Sam Bloom pops up again, and he arranged for Oswald's public transfer to the county jail.
Hey, Don, no, go back, Don. I want you to elaborate on number 4.
Okay.
Yeah, can you document each of those points there? They seem to me absolutely crucial.
Yeah, I believe it was Wiesblatt that owned the Dell Tex building, and I don't have my notes in front of me. I was working on this all day. But the Iranian Mining Company was an Israeli firm, I believe.
Well, I mean, this is quite an indictment, Don, for anyone who thinks that Israel had nothing to do with the assassination.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and like I said, these are just kind of summary points. We could expand on every one of these, probably make a show out of every one of them. But this is just kind of a quick summary, and this is stuff I've been working on the last couple of years. Yeah, the Dow Tex building. I mean, and Zapruder worked in the Dow Tex building too. People forget about that. So there's a lot of thought in certain circles here in the research community that Zapruder had advanced knowledge. He had foreknowledge of this.
Well, what for me was the tell is Zapruder was on TV that evening, and he described to his host this blowout at the right front of his head, which is what you saw in the film after it was edited, but not before. That tells me Zapruder knew how they were going to make it come out after the CIA had revised the film.
Okay, and then point 7 was that Jew Jack Ruby, real name Rubenstein, appeared to execute the Patsy Oswald in the basement of the DPD on national television. But our guy Ralph Sinkay has done quite a bit of work on that, and there's some serious doubt as to whether Jack Ruby was actually the gunman. So that's I would check out Ralph's blog for that. Oswald Innocent, the Oswald Innocence campaign. Then point 8, Jew-owned media puts out the lone gunman cover story. Point 9, 4 Jewish lawyers on the Warren Commission, Ball, Bellin, Eisenberg, and Redlich, came up with the single bullet theory, which was, Gary,
the single most
greatest fraud
ever perpetrated on the American
public. Yeah.
Okay, but wait, hold on.
I don't know. You could argue about Lee as a lone gunman or the moon landing hoax or 9/11 as done by 19 Islamic terrorists. Those are close competitors.
They are.
Yeah.
But the single bullet theory, theory is widely.
Wait, I have to ask you a question. All right, so on the single bullet theory, the creation of it, who were the ballistic experts? Who were the detectives, homicide detectives? Who did they speak with that had serious expertise in bullet wounds?
Yeah, there was none of those type of people. It was 4 Jewish lawyers
in a room
watching the Zapruder film and the Nix film over and over again for 8 hours. Yeah, there was no ballistics person, nobody with combat gunshot wound experience. Nobody like that came up.
No homicide detectives?
No medical professional.
Okay, next point.
Okay, so then point 10, Clay Shaw was the only person ever prosecuted for JFK's murder. And Shaw's handler was Jew Louis M. Bloomfield, who was the front man for the Jewish oligarch Bronfman family. And that's, in a nutshell, the Perm Index connection. Point 11, Israel's illicit nuclear weapons program blossoms under LBJ's administration. The Mona inspections ceased.
Immediately.
Yep.
Yeah. So now, how does Dr. say it? They have over 6,000 of those beauties or something like that?
Yeah, 600 of those little beauties. Yeah.
Yeah, 600. So I have to stay for a second, Don. this is the most important thing about the entire case to me, is that John Kennedy was standing in front of nuclear weapons for the state of Israel, and Ben-Gurion resigned because Kennedy was such a threat to the Israeli state, to the state of Israel.
Well, to their agenda, Gary. He wasn't a threat to Israel. He was a threat to their agenda to arm themselves.
Well, Israel saw him as an existential threat to Israel's survival. They figured without nuclear weapons, they were dead. So that's why Kennedy was taken out. And point 12, the USS Liberty incident. LBJ and Israel conspired to attack defenseless U.S. spy ship Liberty. They wanted to blame the attack on Egypt and then nuke Cairo. They ended up abandoning that plan, and they recalled the bomber just minutes before it was going to drop nukes on Cairo.
Yeah, and I would suggest that everyone go to the new JFK show, the USS Liberty, with Phil Nelson. We did an entire show about that.
Okay, so that was my main points there.
Let's draw in Larry for his comments about that summary overview.
Yeah, well, in that one show, what was it, 84?
Yep.
As I recall, I only made 2 comments there. One had to do with Dimona, as you so rightfully there observed. And remember we talked about Homer Echeverria, the guy from Chicago, the Cuban from Chicago,
right?
Who was mentioned in a CIA document.
Right, who said their new backers,
right.
They had a lot of money, their new backers were Jews, and as soon as they took care of JFK.
Right. Well, it's very interesting because here's something that's I'm going to talk about for the first time ever, and it's about the new documents. I found a document that clearly shows that not only was Homer Echeverria a CIA asset, but so was his father Evelio. And I even have their 201 file numbers right here in front of me on my computer screen. I can tell you this is basically a one-page summary of certain agents, and it's coming out of the JM Wave CIA station there, and it's dated January 28, 1965. Okay, it's from Deputy Chief WHS/S, subject TYPIC. I don't know what that's some kind of code, operational, and a trace request. And action required a little bit lower in this document. And it says station traces. Station traces are requested on the following individuals for the use specified in the separate cover attachment, which means that means that they were still being used as assets in other operations, Jim. And Homer Echeverria, and his number was 201-767409. Date of birth September the 3rd, 1931, at Jatabonica, Camagüey, Cuba. Citizenship Cuban, OCC in Cuban, former payroll check at the refinery in Caibaiguan, sorry. And then in the U.S., employee of Chicago Transit Authority for the past 2 years, which is exactly what says in that memo, Jim. So if there's any doubt that this guy was a CIA asset, forget it. There is none whatsoever. Now, once you start to bring that into the picture, now you go back to that memo, and we're talking about a whole different ball game here. I don't want to pour gasoline on the fire here, but that's for you guys to discuss there now. But I'm just throwing it out there, for you guys. And then his father Evelio, here it is. His father Evelio was 201 they kept it in the family, Jim. 201-767410, and it says father of Abe, date of birth 28 March 1905 in Colón, Matanzas, Cuba. Citizenship Cuban, occupation OCC, unemployed, and he's living at the same address of his son, 2701 North Kedzie, Chicago, Illinois. So, you know, to put it together, and you know, it adds up to 4. So you guys, whatever you want to comment on that, you know.
Well, given these 12 points that Don is making appear to be verifiable, I know of no reason to disbelieve any of them. I know good reasons to believe most of them. How can any of this be anti-Semitic? That entails discounting an individual or their opinions as having no value or worth on the grounds of their ethnicity or their religion. Nothing like that is going on here. So to claim that there's something anti-Semitic here is simply blatantly absurd. Just as it was absurd to discount you on the ground that you participated in that earlier discussion, Larry. I mean, it's really verges on the obscene.
Well, you know, things like that happen. You know, we went off onto larger and bigger and better things. You know, in Dallas, you know, where that conference was, you know, such a great event. And
yeah, but the trial was an unmitigated disaster. Yeah, conclusive proof of Lee Oswald's guilt, innocence. They would have presented to completely exonerate him with 5 minutes of deliberation by the jury, and you were excluded.
And later on, I had a brief conversation with Bob Tannenbaum, you know, and he had a falling out with the other 2 attorneys. Okay, and I believe he left early in the proceedings, Jim. We hadn't talked about that, but
you mean early in the trial itself?
Yeah.
Well, we had a conversation in the men's room where I was explaining to him who I was and how outrageous it was, in my opinion, that you'd been excluded, and he referred to them in highly unflattering terms.
There you go.
Well, everything we know about him is pretty much that way. All right, so I just want to make a comment on Tannenbaum. You know, he's very sharp. He's still very well versed on the case, but you know, he's still sort of like in the 70s. You know, when he was head of the HSCA. You know, for a brief time, as a matter of fact. You know, and we have moved on. You know, like to the new technology and that kind of thing. So.
He seemed like a decent guy, but the HSC was a complete charade. It was a ridiculous stunt. We can't even get an explanation from a member of the medical panel as to how they contracted the massive missing back of the head described with mathematical precision in the Bethesda autopsy report to a small entry wound at the top of the head where the back of the head has been restored, which isn't even consistent with a Harper fragment. Larry, I mean, this is embarrassingly bad.
But you had the 2 head counsels for the HSCA. First, Richard Sprague from Philadelphia, not to be confused with the Richard Sprague in California, who was a photographic expert, and Tannenbaum, who both requested documents, unredacted documents, and whatever documents that they requested, and that's when they both got canned because the agencies were not going to do that until they ran into Robert Blakey, who then he went ahead and played ball with them, and the rest is history.
Yeah, Blakey was far more accommodating. What a disgrace! The whole thing, the whole HSCA inquiry was a disgrace.
Yeah, I know, and that's when another spike starts to happen with the strange deaths.
Right, the deaths of the witnesses. Yes. Don, go ahead.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Okay, so we were talking about anti-Semitism. So I went and looked up the ADL's definition of anti-Semitism. So here's from the ADL. The belief or behavior hostile towards Jews just because they are Jewish. It may take the form of religious teachings that proclaim the inferiority of Jews, for instance, or political efforts to isolate, oppress, or otherwise injure them. It may also include prejudiced or stereotyped views about Jews.
What about the Jewish teachings of the Talmud about Jewish superiority over all other forms of human life?
Yeah, we'll get to that. We're going to finish up with the ADL here. Hostility toward Jews dates to ancient times, perhaps to the beginning of Jewish history. From the days of the Bible until the Roman Empire, Jews were criticized and sometimes punished for their efforts to remain a separate social and religious group, one that refused to adapt the values and the way of life of the non-Jewish societies in which it lived. The rise of Christianity greatly increased hatred of Jews. They became seen not merely as outsiders, but as a people that rejected Jesus and crucified him, despite the fact that the Roman authorities ordered and carried out the crucifixion. Well, that's a lie, but by the High Middle Ages, 11th through the 14th centuries, Jews were widely persecuted as barely human Christ killers and devils, forced to live in all Jewish ghettos. They were accused of poisoning rivers and wells during times of disease. And that's true. During the Black Plague, there was a lot of speculation that Jews were poisoning the wells, so to speak. And if we go back to the second paragraph of the ADL's definition here, it says, the Jews are refusing to adapt the values and the way of life of non-Jewish societies, but then they're forced. They complain about being forced to live in all Jewish ghettos.
I would just note, Don, that the report you gave with the 12 points doesn't violate any of those strictures, does not satisfy the definition of anti-Semitism at all.
No, well, we'll get there in a minute. But now, and another point to make is that, okay, so what is a Semite? Okay, so Semite, the real definition of that is the people that are descended from Noah's son Shem. Okay. Yeah, so the Semite. Okay, Jews are not the people of the Old Testament. Okay, they're not the ancient Hebrews. They're not the ancient Israelites. They're actually Edomites, Canaanites, Hittites, Hivites. You know, they're descended from those people. Okay, they've assumed the identity of the ancient Israelites. Okay, it's a case of it's identity theft. Okay, and the ADL even says that Jews don't adapt to the surrounding society, so inevitably they get booted out, and they've been removed from 109 locations over the years.
Isn't that just dumbfounding? I mean, does anything remotely like that happen to any other group?
No. I mean, you think about it. I mean, who else has to be physically removed? And see, all Hitler was doing was saying, hey, we can't, Jews are going to wreck our society. They have to be removed. We have to come up with a solution. But nobody else wants them. They've been kicked out of every place else in Europe. They were talking about sending them to Madagascar. So clearly, Jews do not fit in with regular society. They don't fit in with white society. They just don't. And okay, so we'll just finish up with this real quick. So with Jews, it's either kind of feast or famine. Either they are stuck in the Jewish ghetto, or they get to the palace and take it over and run everything, and they run it into the ground, and then it burns, and we have to start all over again. So Jews are feast or famine. They don't aim for the middle class. They aim for ruling, and if they can't get that, they end up in the ghetto.
We're going to take this as a somewhat oversimplified account of history, Don, with many variations, but
we have an hour-long show.
You're getting the general idea across, right?
Yeah, we only have an hour to break this down. So
okay, go ahead.
So love them or hate them, Jews kind of are what they are. All right, so where does this drive come from? So this is from the one-page summary of the protocols of Zion. This is the one-page summary in plain English. Goyim, and that's what Jews refer to non-Jewish people as the Goyim. Goyim are mentally inferior to Jews and can't run their nations properly. For their sake and ours, we need to abolish their governments and replace them with a single government. This will take a long time and involve much bloodshed, but it's for a good cause. Here's what we'll need to do. Place our agents and helpers everywhere. Take control of the media and use it in propaganda for our plans. Start fights between different races, classes, and religions. Bribery, threats, and blackmail to get our way. Use Freemasonic lodges to attract potential public officials. Appeal to successful people's egos. Appoint puppet leaders who can be controlled by blackmail. Replace royal rule with socialist rule, then communism, then despotism. Abolish all rights and freedoms except for the right of force by us. Sacrifice people, including Jews sometimes when necessary. Eliminate religion. Replace it with science and materialism. We can just see in the ADL's definition that Christianity wasn't good for Jews. So that's where the push comes to eliminate religion. Control the education system to spread deception and destroy intellect. Rewrite history to our benefit, i.e., let's assume the identity of the ancient Israelites. Create entertaining distractions. Well, we have plenty of those surrounding us. Corrupt minds with filth and perversion. I mean, who's behind pornography? I mean, it's all Jews. Encourage people to spy on one another. Keep the masses in poverty and perpetual labor. Take possession of all wealth, property, and especially gold. Use gold to manipulate the markets, cause depressions, etc. Introduce a progressive tax on wealth. Replace sound investment with speculation. Make long-term interest-bearing loans to governments. See the Federal Reserve. And give bad advice to governments and everyone else.
At least one of those, a progressive tax on wealth seems to me to be a well-founded principle of government. So I certainly don't take exception to all of these. Yeah.
But we never had, love it or hate it, we never had the progressive tax on wealth until the Jews assumed control of the money supply.
I'm very troubled that Trump is dropping the tax rate on the wealthy. We'll never balance a budget, and it's all justified on trickle-down economics, which has been demonstrated historically to be unsuccessful.
Yeah, I don't think his tax plan is going to get through, but we can perhaps address that in another show. Okay, yeah. So as Larry had alluded to, what was behind this Israeli involvement in the assassination? And it was, I think the main reason is JFK's refusal to let Israel develop a nuclear weapons program. That's a point Piper and others have made. But there's also another part of the agenda that may not be quite as obvious. Let's take a look at Barbara Specter here, one of our favorite people. And here's a quote from her. I think there is a resurgence of anti-Semitism because at this point in time, Europe has not yet learned how to be multicultural. And I think we are going to be part of the throes of that transformation, which must take place. Europe is not going to be the monolithic societies they once were in the last century. Jews are going to be at the center of that. It's a huge transformation for Europe to make. They are now going into a multicultural mode, and Jews will be resented because of our leading role. Barbara Lerner Specter.
Yeah, that reminds me of almost every single commercial has interracial couples in them.
Yep. So,
anywhere you turn, remember the Newlywed Game? There's always interracial couples that are married. Even the Flipper Flop, all these real estate shows, it's always lesbian couples. It's just really amazing. You can't really.
What's the attitude in Israel toward interracial marriage or lesbianism and homosexuality or pornography, Don?
They don't allow it.
Not allowed. Not allowed.
Have it.
You can't even
show. The worst thing you could be is a homosexual over there. That's the worst thing that could happen. Over here, if we have shows like The New Normal, I mean, it's really disgusting to watch television these days. And you can see almost everything in all those protocols that Don just laid out. And you can see them happening at all times.
Yeah, none of that's allowed in Israel. You can't even show a girl in a bikini until after 10 p.m.
Right.
In Tel Aviv.
Yeah,
No pornography in Israel. No pornography in Israel.
No, but you've got multiple Jewish companies in this country pumping out billions of dollars worth of porn.
But you cannot have multiculturalism in Israel. It is not allowed.
Verboten.
They've got
walls. They have big walls surrounding Israel, and they deport Africans, by the truckload.
Larry, were you aware of these features of the Israeli operation?
No, I wasn't. Don't forget that I'm not able to see the visuals that you guys are seeing. So
Don's reading them.
All right, well, look, let's take a little break, and we'll be right back. This is New JFK Show number 172.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade.
That's what we were told. Most Americans never believed Lee Oswald was the lone gunman, for excellent reasons. In fact, there were at least 6 shooters who fired from 8 to 10 shots or more who are identified here. We have, finally, the solution to the greatest murder mystery in history, laid out for the world to see, proof after proof after proof. Photos were faked, the body was changed, x-rays were altered, the home movies were fixed. 15 experts contribute to a 529-page book with 1,037 photos and diagrams in black and white and color.
Hi, this is Gary King. If you'd like JFK, who, how, and why, and would like to support the new JFK show, then go to patriotradiobooks.com. That's patriotradiobooks.com.
Right back. Welcome back to the new JFK show number 172. And after Don finishes with his presentation, I have a list of dual citizens in our government today. So we have to fast forward till today. I'd like to show that list for just a
I think
moment.
Don has some clips to give us insights about the trial, too.
Yeah, if we get to it, it won't take long.
Yeah, I just got a couple more slides here.
Okay.
So then there's Barbara Specter. And then we have Mr. Jacob Javits. And he played a huge role in the Hart-Celler Act of 1965. And before that, Javits authored an article entitled "Let's Open the Gates" that proposed immigration levels of 500,000 per year for 20 years with no restrictions on national origin. The 1965 open immigration law is presently fulfilling the aims of the Jewish conspiracy as seen in its effects. The U.S. Census Bureau projects that by the year 2050, European-derived peoples will no longer be a majority of the population of America due to the massive influx of immigrants since the signing of the bill in 1965. The Jews have also given these immigrants a moral mandate to expand both demographically and politically. And expand they will and do. But any attempt by European-derived peoples to retain demographic, political, and cultural control of America are represented by the Jews as being racist and immoral.
Yeah, now what administration we had this passed in there, Don?
That would have been the Lyndon Baines Johnson administration.
Oh.
And he was Jewish. He was either a crypto Jew, but he was Jewish.
The entire tide turned towards the state of Israel after the removal of John F. Kennedy. It's as simple as that. We were bombing up our own ships. Now, John Kennedy would never allow the bombing of a decorated ship.
No, that never would have happened.
I noticed this bill is 1965, just a year plus after his assassination.
Yep. That's when the floodgates opened.
Yeah, it didn't take long to get the ball rolling after that. And once you see my list after this, you'll see what I mean.
And that's what Jews do. They get into a country and then they open up the floodgates. That's how Europe got invaded by the Muslims. Okay, so that takes us to the 2-day mock trial. State of Texas versus Lee Harvey Oswald.
And what did Alec Baldwin have to do with it?
He was the dinner speaker.
Right.
Why in the world?
Well, apparently he tried to.
I believe he's got a book out, and he was the he hosted the dinner for the attorneys and some of that. I was supposed to be at that dinner, so
Yeah, Larry,
you know.
yeah, Larry Schnapp said the big thing that Alex Baldwin said was that he was told at NBC, CBS, MSNBC that that's just a place you do not go. We do not conflict as a policy at NBC and the other ones of going against the Warren Commission. And so he gave the big revelation to the people that night. So that's what he did.
Okay, so then let's play.
Well, he was on our side.
Oh, go ahead, Larry.
No, he was on our side.
Alec was
Alec Baldwin was on.
He believed Lee was innocent. Did he believe Lee was in the doorway?
I have no idea, but he's on our side.
Yeah.
Okay,
You're gonna have to let me have the screen share for a second. You want to hit pause real quick, Dr. Fetzer?
Oh no, it's Don who took control. I never did the screen share.
Yeah. Okay, I was gonna play. You want to play the clips?
Yeah, but I need you to hit the screen share so I can play them.
Okay, hold on. Let me.
I'll put this picture up as we're doing it.
I don't even recognize that person. Is that Larry?
That's Larry.
No.
No.
It's really sad when you put up a picture when you're so much younger, but you're actually old. In other words, this guy's a lot older than this, and this is his young picture, I guess you could say.
Probably 20 years older.
Yeah. So, all right. Okay, so go ahead and hit screen share real quick.
Let's see. Stop share. There we go. Okay.
Okay. Now, I'm going to go over here real quick. Okay. All right, let me turn this up. Okay, Don, you want to give us a little introduction of what these clips are? It's an interview with Larry Schnapp and Jim D.
Yeah. Let's see. The first one was. Yeah, it's Larry. Okay, he was talking about it seems that the main thing they were trying to get is the reaction. They were trying to judge the reaction of the jury after they present all this evidence. They wanted to see how a jury would handle certain aspects of the evidence that's out there.
All right, here we go.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Black Op Radio. This is your host, Glenn Osanek, and we are speaking to Larry Schnapp. Hello, Larry.
Hi there.
So glad that you took time to talk to me again this week. Before we were talking about the trial, the pre-trial, and promoting it. Now that it's over, everybody wants to know, what are your impressions, and we'll discuss what are the pros and the cons.
Well, we're still going through our postmortem, and the most important thing that we're going to look at is going to be the raw footage of the jury deliberations. One of the great things about this event was that we're getting a chance to see how a real jury would look at the evidence, and it helps us in terms of how we would make a presentation in a real proceeding, down the road. So the mock trial was we had some competing visions for the mock trial. We were trying to examine the evidence based through the lens of the 21st century, what we've learned from the Innocence Project, what new science has told us. So the first day was focused on a lot of the medical evidence and what we know now through, enhanced X-rays and other types of tools. So that was So, we had a kind of a hybrid situation where this was partly a presentation, and then the second day was really more of a trial, although the whole thing was a trial. Unlike a real trial, we had no discovery.
I'm on the air. Can you call me back in half an hour?
All right, let's talk about that one, Don.
So they had competing visions for the mock trial. So seems to have been a split between Schnapp and Tannenbaum. But the larger point is both Schnapp and Tannenbaum are Jewish, and tribal loyalties are always going to trump any sort of truth finding. Especially in the JFK deal. The HSCA was screwed up because of Bob Tannenbaum. The mock trial was screwed up because of Tannenbaum and Schnapp. They're always going to misdirect and obfuscate. It's the same thing that you see in 9/11 research, where you've got the biggest so-called truther, the truth group out there is Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth, but it's run by a Jew, Richard Gage, and therefore you get this nanothermite bullshit. So whenever you have a Jew running your truther project, it's going to fail.
All right. You want to talk about that interview, Dr. Fetzer?
Well, they didn't need to prove conspiracy. All they had to do was prove Oswald to be innocent. So they consumed a whole day with irrelevant information when it comes to whether or not Lee was the lone gunman or even a shooter. I mean, I don't doubt that they proved there have been multiple gunmen, but that didn't thereby exclude Lee from having been one of them.
Right.
Yeah, they could have just had Larry up there, like Jim said, and said, hey, Oswald was in the doorway. He didn't shoot anybody, and the whole thing would have been over with.
Exactly.
Right.
Well, the first, it appears that the first day they were concentrating on Dr. Mantik's work, which is, I would start with, with that angle any day, because Dr. Mantik's work is, and with his credentials and qualifications, it's just something that is a must in a proceeding like that. But he was talking about that there was no discovery, and then this was an abbreviated version of a trial. And I figured, and I thought that if that was the case, then there would be no need for the prosecutors to even bring out any type of objection because of my testimony, regarding stuff that was irrelevant. So, why would a prosecutor, be vicious, when it's really an exercise in justice? That's my view on that, Jim.
I mean, David Mantik is brilliant, no question about it. But you have a 2-day mock trial, and you're not trying to prove every aspect of the case. You're just trying to prove that Oswald was innocent,
right,
not guilty. I don't think you needed a 5-hour breakdown on X-rays.
They wasted a day.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was that long, Don. 5 hours. Yeah.
I think it was something like that. Yeah, they spent a huge chunk of the day on.
And why, if you had Mantik, why would you need Aguilar, who's second rate any way you cut it?
That's right. Yeah, I agree.
All right, ready to go on to the next clip? Here we go.
Accomplished a lot. Although we got a hung jury, the jury was actually starting to go in the favor of the defense. We were 6-5. I think that when they first did the first poll, it was 8-3. Then it was 6-5. And I watched the interviews, the exit interviews of some of the jurors, and it looks like the majority of the jurors thought there was a conspiracy. They just weren't sure what Oswald's role was in that conspiracy. If there was a role, if it was passive, it was purely a patsy. So, and we only had, I guess, about 2.5 to 3 hours of evidence on Oswald's defense. For the first time, we really were able to, we created a timeline and essentially got it down to, there's a 6-minute gap. So we can find witnesses that can place Oswald someplace other than the 6th floor from 11:55 to 12:25. And then from 12:25 to 12:31, there's a 6-minute gap. And then again, he's seen about 12:31 on the second floor, when the patrolman Baker and the superintendent Truly come up to the second floor.
That sounds like Di Eugenio. Is that Larry Schnapp?
That's Larry Schnapp.
Yeah.
Because the fact is, you got proof of where he was when the shooting took place in the doorway. So
Well,
how
no,
could
you
they
don't.
left off the Alchin 6 evidence, which puts him exactly where he was at the time the shooting was taking place?
Yeah, but the
And
Jewish lawyer.
There's no 6-minute gap at all.
Well, yeah, but after the Jewish lawyer removed Larry Rivera, now there is a 6-minute gap.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely stunning. Clearly contrived. And for him to give that argument when Larry was filling in the gap is just a complete disgrace.
And if you think Oswald, he was seen on this first floor at 12:25. And think that.
Go to the next clip.
We got 25 seconds. You want to hear this one? Let's just go ahead and finish it.
That he was a gunman, that means he had to run up the steps or take the elevator up to the 6th floor, assemble a sniper's nest consisting of 50-pound boxes, assemble his rifle, and then shoot the president, all in 6 minutes. So we thought that was much more powerful than, say, using that photograph from the Alton's photograph. Is that Oswald? Is it Billy Lovelady? Here you got a 6-minute gap. So that was really powerful.
All right. Just embarrassing that they're focusing on boxes and filling them up in these days and time when they could have had our man Larry Rivera.
Oh yeah, it's shameless. It was obviously a deliberate sabotaging of the mock trial. Go on with the next clip.
Defense was too complicated. That I knew the case well, and I have an interest in it, but I was thinking that when there's so much to this case that it seemed to me if I was just in the jury and it was like somebody I just knew, it was too complicated the way it was presented. Do you have any comment or observation about that? I mean, do you think it should have been maybe 6 points that you brought up? Instead, like when it got to Mexico City, I was thinking, "Oh my goodness! I mean, this is going all over the place. That there's so much to this case. How can you present it in an afternoon?"
Yeah, we had a struggle because we basically had like too many trials. So the first day was the medical evidence and conspiracy arguments, and they decided to put on 3 medical experts and Don Thomas. Actually, 4 medical experts and Don Thomas. So could it have been done differently? Sure. It's always you're always going to be subject to second guessing. There was a lot of technical stuff the first day, that's for sure. You had one person testifying about X-rays being altered to, and having a densitonomy analysis to show this part of the X-ray is really white, and another one using fracture analysis, another one talking about the dust particles in the front. So it was a lot of material. I think it's fair to say that, another person, people could, reasonable minds could differ on how much of that testimony needed to be, or, would have been good to present. But, that was
none of it. I mean, it was just confusing.
Right.
I mean, this is just shocking. He's just laying out and explaining how they sought to obfuscate and confuse the jurors.
Well, that's exactly it. That's my point. This whole exercise was, can we get some Jewish lawyers to confuse a jury over the Oswald evidence?
Yes. By excluding the most important and decisive evidence from scratch. Don't even let it in.
Well, I just want to comment that our strategy was to start with the backyard photos, okay, and to bring Roscoe White into the picture because that is where CE 133C was found, among his possessions in 1976. So that would have been taken the trial in a completely new direction, which then would have been able to set us up for the August 6th. But they didn't need me to bring the backyard photographs, into as evidence, Jim.
Did they bring in the backyard photograph?
No.
Not that I know of.
And without proving that there was a body double, the backyard photographs on their face appear to incriminate him.
Yeah, all you had to do was present John Barber's work in the Garrison tapes. Just run Steve Jaffe's presentation there, which is only a couple of minutes. That would have been more than enough. Okay, without even touching on the computer overlays and the graphics now.
All right, it's just unbelievable how they deliberately mucked this up. Deliberately. There's no question about it. Go to the next tape. Here we go.
Kappa, did not Thurl-Wecht. How do you guys vote on how you were going to present what you were going to present?
Well, we basically broke out into 2 days. So Bill Simpson and I were going to focus on the case, Lee Oswald's defense. And then Dr. Wecht and Bob Tannenbaum were sort of, kind of organizing the first day, which was on the conspiracy and the single bullet and the grassy knoll. That's what they wanted to focus on.
Okay, right. Because I did another thing was it was a little surprising at the beginning of the second day. Bob Tannenbaum had about a half an hour to finish off, but something happened where the judge asked him about something. He said, "Oh, Your Honor, I'm not part of this. I'm just another attorney or something." And I thought, wow, he seems to be distancing himself from either the trial organization or Kappa, and I wasn't quite sure what he meant. Do you recall that?
There you go. You go.
He said he wasn't a lawyer for Oswald.
About that?
Oh, okay.
He's telling you right there, in the interview that Tannenbaum had a falling out with the other two attorneys. It's very clear, and it was confirmed to Jim. It was confirmed to me.
Yeah, I was reading Ralph Sinkay's blog, and here's a quote from Ralph, because Ralph listened to the whole thing on the stream, and it says, amazingly, Robert Tannenbaum, in his final remarks to the court, said that he wasn't there as Oswald's lawyer. What?
Right.
What was he doing being Oswald's lawyer?
That's what I'm talking about. That's what I mean. Personally, he told me, that I'm not going to repeat what he said, but, his displeasure, just like what Jim said about when he ran into him in the men's room.
A surprise to me also.
Yeah.
So, he was there for the morning to, John Thomas was going to have his cross, and he was there while his witness was being crossed, and then Gary Aguilar was coming on, and then Bob made that statement and then left, and so we, I then had to do the direct examination for Gary Aguilar, and then we went on to what was going to be the portion of the trial that Bill and I were going to do.
What in the world could Gary Aguilar have possibly contributed?
Well, you already had Mantic.
Right. The point is, there was no point in having Aguilar. Go to the next. Yeah.
Overkill.
I was really disgusted by the first day. First of all, let's talk about some of the limitations of the mock trial. First of all, you only had 2 days. And in such a case like this, which is so difficult and so complex because there's so much evidence tampering in it and so much bogus testimony, it's very hard to get a jury to understand when they've been, the mass media has indoctrinated most of those people, to the Warren Commission already. All right. So in my opinion, one of my criticisms of the approach our side took is that I thought we brought up too many evidentiary points. It was like a racehorse running through an obstacle course. It was, with the obstacles like at every 10 yards, and to make a layman understand all that stuff is very, very difficult. Another problem I thought our side had was that we didn't really take on the circumstantial case against Oswald. Our side usually doesn't talk about this because we know it's mostly BS. But, for the average person, you have to be able to take, for instance, one of the things that their side brought up was his so-called escape from the Texas School Book Depository after the shooting. There's a couple of ways you could have dealt with that. One way, of course, would have been to bring up the Roger Craig testimony, the Roger Craig Marvin Johnson testimony. And that is at the ending of Josiah Thompson's book, 6 Seconds in Dallas, where he describes that complimentary testimony about a guy running down from the near side of the Grassy Knoll area and getting into a Nash Rambler with the dark-complected guy driving away. And then he brings up Roger Craig, who also saw it. And then Roger Craig later identifies that guy as Oswald. So that's one way you can counter it. The other way you counter it is by saying, you call this an escape? The guy walks down to the bus station, which is 4 blocks away from Dealey Plaza, picks up the bus and heads back to Dealey Plaza. So he's right at the crime scene. The bus stops in traffic, and he gets off the bus, walks over to the other side of Dealey Plaza again, hails a cab, and is ready to give up the cab to a little old lady. Then she goes, that's an escape? That's an escape? So, see, that should have been brought up to take that issue head on. I don't think we did a good job on that.
Those were perfectly decent points. Of course, Eugenio was making them, but the fact is you didn't need any of that. All you needed was one witness, Larry Rivera, to demonstrate the backyard photographs were with a body double, Roscoe White, and that Lee Oswald was standing in the doorway at the very time of the shooting, and it's over. Case closed.
Absolutely.
Especially if you're going to have such an abbreviated trial, huh, Jim?
Yeah.
You got to come out guns blazing.
Right. Ridiculous. Go ahead with the last clip.
The failing of this trial reveals that you can still confuse people by, we just didn't do a good job. I mean, Tannenbaum didn't do a bad job, but for a while there, he went on, what was your opinion of Bob Tannenbaum?
Well, in my opinion, when he called Wecht to do the whole single bullet theory thing, I would have done it a little bit differently on that issue. I would have taken it, instead of relying just on the trajectory analysis, I would have broken it down step by step to show why it's not improbable, it's plausible. I would have said, for example, if you believe this trajectory through the neck, then why aren't the cervical vertebrae damaged? And I would have put up a diagram showing that through pure geometry, this bullet to come in at the back and go out the base of the neck had to go through the cervical vertebrae. But there's no damage to the cervical vertebrae. Then I would have said, have you ever in your whole life heard of an entrance wound being larger than an exit wound? And I've never seen that anyplace.
No, and the thing is, for the uninitiated, you have to really spell that out. Right. And I can see how a 2-day trial, I mean, even when we did 50 Reasons for 50 Years, which were just 5-minute clips, I understand it adds up to about 6 hours. So this is a complicated case. And when they started getting into Mexico City and all these other extraneous things, like you say, just say the magic bullet, it could not have done that. And another thing that bothered me is they went along with a lot of things which they should have objected to, in my view. And when they said that the gun and the bullet have already been tested and proved that this is Oswald's gun, that's not true. In 1978, the House Select Committee test-fired the rifle, and the rifling do not match Commission Exhibit 399. I mean, they don't match, and that's already happened. It's already taken place. So they should have said, this bullet does not match. And here's the failing of our complaining, I think, from my point of view, is that we know the case right very well. So as soon as the defense made an error or they didn't object strenuously, we're in the background saying, well, say this or do that or do something. And they didn't, so it's hard to put forward a perfect case. But I think it really revealed, even my wife said, how could 6 people vote that Lee Oswald was guilty? Like, how could that happen? And, you have to say, well, listen, that side put up a lot of old facts that after you hear it, then it takes our side a half an hour to explain why that's not true and confuse the issue. And I think there was a lot of confusion going on with so many facts, so many things going on and on. It just revealed that it's, to the uninitiated, it's not a cut and dried thing. I mean,
John, we're almost out of time. Let me ask, didn't they talk at one point why they did not go with the Alchin 6, which was the crucial piece of evidence?
DiEugenio did not bring that up. So the whole point of these last couple of clips was that, to me, it sounded like, okay, because Len and Jim were pushing this mock trial pretty hard. So my thought was, okay, well, were they in on this? Did they know something ahead of time? I don't think they knew anything until it happened. I don't think they had any inside knowledge on it.
Lynn sounds completely sincere.
That's kind of that was my thought too. They both sounded sincere.
But there needs to be an explanation for why the most important evidence of his innocence was never even introduced.
Well, none of this makes any sense unless you punch in the Jewish equation.
They told us flat out it's because of a show 2.5 years ago when Don Fox said something that we should ring the bell over. So, all right. Any last words there, Larry?
No, I believe that, the evidence was clear. It was simple. It was easy to follow, and it would, I believe, change the entire complexion of the case. And I don't think it would have taken that long for 12 intelligent people who just would look at graphics, on a screen, and what they would have decided, what they would have voted here. So, but someday.
Yeah, I think Marina, June, and Rachel will be calling you up one day. I really believe that. Final words, Dr. Fetzer?
Oh, it was a disgrace. It was disgusting. It was deliberate sabotage. Taking Larry out was absurd. All you needed, the only witness you needed was Larry Rivera, and he's the guy they left behind on frivolous grounds.
Absolutely. All right, this is New JFK Show number 172. We thank Don Fox, Jim Fetzer, Larry Rivera, and myself. We'll see you next week.
In Dallas, Texas, 3 shots were fired at President Kennedy's motorcade.
That's what we were told. Most Americans never believed Lee Oswald was the lone gunman, for excellent reasons. In fact, there were at least 6 shooters who fired from 8 to 10 shots or more who are identified here. We have, finally, the solution to the greatest murder mystery in history, laid out for the world to see, proof after proof after proof. Photos were faked, the body was changed, x-rays were altered, the home movies were fixed. 15 experts contribute to a 529-page book with 1,037 photos and diagrams in black and white and color.
Hi, this is Gary King. If you'd like JFK, who, how, and why, and would like to support the new JFK show, then go to patriotradiobooks.com. That's patriotradiobooks.com.